62mm machine guns. Due to its large size and weak, about 30mm of armor, the tank was in effect outdated by the time the Second World War started, as the Red Army quickly found out when it finally deployed them. The tanks did reasonably well during the invasion of Poland, however not so much in the Winter War against Finland, where a good 200 of them got knocked out in rapid succession. To their luck, most of them could be salvaged, and as the factory was close by in Leningrad, which by the way was the main reason for the Winter War in the first place, they just kept repairing them and then sending them back out to the front lines. There are reports on T-28s that made this trip up to 5 times in the few months of this conflict. As the main reason for their downtime was the very poor armor, soon they significantly upgraded the frontal plating from 30 to 80mm, which on the other hand had a serious impact on the speed and mobility. While the T-28 might not have had a glorious history, it's worth to remember that at the time when it was designed, the French had the glorious Renault FTs, the British had the very dangerous Vickers 1 and 2s, and the Germans, well, they had no armor whatsoever. Still, the T-28 was an important stepping stone in Soviet tank engineering, and a lot of the experience gathered on it was put to very good use on the later designs. Right, so much for the history corner. Let's see how the in-game version adapted to its legacy. Starting right away with the oh-so-important gun, there is instantly a difference from the historical design. While the 76mm short-barrel derpy guns are available as a choice, thank God you also have an alternative form of the 57mm long-barreled rapid-fire guns. These are without question the better choice, and we will use them throughout the review. Just consider how much damage the HE shell with only 156 average damage will do when it fails to get through with its 38mm of penetration. And you will face T-150s in this thing. Alright, so that's settled. Let's see how the 57mm gun compares to the competition at Tier 4. Well, not badly actually. While we do not have the best DPM available, just being shy of 2000 damage per minute is nothing to be ashamed of at this tier. We also have a very healthy penetration of 112mm, only beaten by the Matilda, and an alrightish 85 alpha damage per shot. It all comes together with the rate of fire though, which is a whopping 23 rounds per minute, once again only topped by the Matilda, so in effect what you have is a very rapid firing gun with shells that will just cut through a lot of your opposition like butter. Not bad. Regarding the secondary stats, the aim time is slightly worse than the competition's, though 2.2 seconds is still quite good. On the other hand, 0.33 meters accuracy is light years better than what anybody else has. The only real downside is really the 6 degrees of gun depression, so be aware that hilly terrain might actually cause you some problems. Moving on to the protection, the 350 HP it has is average good, but the real deal is with the armor, or better to say the lack of it. It's very clear from the start that the armor profile is based on the early, unupgraded T-28 design, with 30mm at best on the front, and even that's really only true on the lower plate and the mid plate, and 20mm on the sides and rear. The turret isn't much better either, with a sloppy 25mm of armor all around. You have to expect it to hurt when you get hit, and combining that with your large silhouette, you really want to watch out for your health. Especially any kind of howitzer is the mortal enemy of the T-28, a single HE shell will usually send you packing. The best way to avoid getting shot at is to use your mobility, which luckily is another highlight of this machine. Even the top speed of 45 km per hour is the best from this lineup, but the real deal is with the extremely good power to weight ratio of almost 30 horsepower per ton that will allow you to cruise at this speed most of the time on most terrain. To enhance your mobility even further, both the turret and the hull turn very quick as well, with 46 and 40 degrees per second turn time respectively, making this baby basically a very large light tank. As for the rest, camo is middle of the road really, while view range with 340 meters is good average as well. Surprisingly, the radio range is rather weak, being at only 375 meters, so on larger maps this might be a bit of a problem occasionally. Now, equipment-wise, the choice is a little bit tricky. I definitely suggest to use vents. Gun armor, on the other hand, is more optional than usual due to the already great rate of fire. Now, of course, there is absolutely nothing wrong with squeezing out even the last ounce of performance of this gun. Gun laying drive can be skipped as well with 2.2 seconds base aim time, especially if you are using vents and a good crew, so I would probably opt for binoculars instead. Never underestimate the power of view range, especially in these lower tiers. Now, crew skill-wise, I would try to get smooth ride and snapshot as soon as possible, and of course 6th sense is always mandatory too. Alright, this was then my quick look at the T-28. Very dangerous, but very fragile as well, so try to wolfpack with other mediums or go flank with it as much as possible. The enemy will be mostly dead by the time they figure out who they should shoot. But it's time to put all this knowledge to good use and unleash a torrent of shells towards the enemy. Alright, so here we are, T-28, Tier 4 match. Half of the enemy team is even Tier 3s. Om nom 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 nom. Let's make this as dirty as possible. Now, these are the type of games when you can make up for all those horribly frustrating games when you are trying to achieve something in a stock machine when you are bottom tier. On the other hand, you have to be, let's say, carefully aggressive in a machine like the T-28. It's very dangerous, especially against such a crowd. We can easily rip through them with our rate of fire and our quite fantastic penetration. On the other hand, coming up against same tier Hetzer, Stug, or getting found by that birch gun can very quickly send us back into the garage. Now, this is one of my quite early games in my World of Tanks career, if you can call it that. So you will see me position myself in a rather interesting fashion from time to time. But this replay is more about the machine rather than myself. So, first is first, mobility. Have a look at how quickly it accelerates. Of course, this is hard ground. But that amazing horsepower per ton power to weight ratio is basically light tank-like. So that means you can very easily shift between fronts. And oops, this Chiha shooting through these arcades. Oops, and there are a lot of enemy tanks. Whoops, Cruiser 4 into the wall. And just look at that, it's basically like a shooting gallery. It's 2 down, and there is plenty more where this one came from. Okay, China is tracked, and this is really what you should be avoid doing. You have such an extremely big, fat side that giving it to the enemy will basically just guarantee that they will be able to pen. Now again, low tier game, so we have to be careful. But the guys driving in front of us definitely do not want to shoot our own guys, and there is somebody bumping into the back of us. Perfect. And yeah, just have a look at how incredibly fast our health pool did melt away. And of course it doesn't help if our own teammates are shooting us in the back. Luckily that was actually the tracks that they managed to hit. And that did cost us the kill. It's quite unfortunate. But again, back to the mobility, we are very quickly able to catch up with the fight, and we are already at our top speed very easily. We'll be able to reach and maintain about 40-45 kilometers per hour. Alright, let's see if we can get that. Is it 3-8? No, he's behind the corner. And by the time we move around, he is basically toast. Yep, 2.2 second aim time. I find it just a little bit too long for my own personal taste, but it's not an aim time that you could call terrible. So if you are opting not to use a gun laying drive, that's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Okay, M2 medium is Actually rather dangerous on us as well if he's using the derpy gun. But if he's not paying any attention. And oops, there is the Hetzer. That's the arch nemesis of the T-28. Come on, take it out. Oh god, Hetzer armor. And he missed. And we didn't.